Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now let's meet our guest. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to be sitting across from a man who didn't just take pictures. He captured the very soul of the American West. He turned light and shadow into poetry. Please welcome the legendary Ansel Adams. Ansel, it is such a joy to have you here.
Thank you, Calvin. What a marvelous opportunity to chat.
Let's start with the basics for those who may somehow not know who you are. Who are you?
Well, I suppose most folks know me as a photographer and an environmentalist who had a deep, lifelong love affair with the Sierra Nevada and Yosemite. I spent my days trying to capture the monuments of consciousness found in nature.
When and where were you born?
I arrived in this world on February 20th, 1902, right in the beautiful city of San Francisco, California.
What was your given name at birth?
It was Ansel Adams.
Is there a story behind your birth name?
It was actually in honor of my uncle, Ansel Easton. My family had deep roots in New England and later the West, so names were a way of carrying that history forward.
What was your hometown like growing up?
San Francisco was a wild, breathtaking place. We lived out near the Golden Gate, and I remember the dunes and the salt spray. But it was also a place of great upheaval. I was only 4 years old when the 1906 earthquake hit. It actually knocked me over and broke my nose. I never had it fixed, so I carried a bit of San Francisco's history right on my face for the rest of my life.
What was your family life like?
I was an only child, and my parents, Charles and Olive, were quite liberal thinkers. My father was a very patient, deeply kind man. Our family business was in timber, but we hit some very hard financial times after the panic of 1907. Despite that, the house was always filled with ideas and music.
What kind of kid were you?
I was a bit of a handful, to be honest. I had what you might call hyperactive enthusiasm. I struggled in the traditional classroom. I just couldn't sit still. My mind was always racing. Eventually, my father realized the standard school system wasn't for me and decided to homeschool me himself.
What were your biggest fears growing up?
I think my biggest fear was being confined. I felt a literal physical distress when I was trapped in a small room or a rigid schedule. I needed the horizon.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
For a long time, I was certain I would be a concert pianist. I studied music with a ferocity. Music taught me about structure and tone, which, funnily enough, became the foundation for how I eventually played the camera.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
Since I was homeschooled for much of it, my activities were quite unique. I studied Greek and English literature, but my favorite classroom was the beach. I spent hours wandering the dunes near our house, just observing the light.
What was your first job?
My very first paying gig was actually as a piano teacher. I spent my winters in San Francisco teaching students to help make ends meet while I practiced for my own career in music.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
It was likely during those early school years. I saw the world with a sort of vibrating intensity that other children didn't seem to share. While they were focusing on their desks, I was looking at the way the fog rolled through the gate.
What's a decision that changed everything for you but felt small at the time?
In 1916, my family took a trip to Yosemite National Park. My father handed me a Kodak Brownie box camera, a simple little thing. I took my first photo of the High Sierra that day. I thought I was just taking a souvenir, but that little box ended up capturing my entire soul.
What was your biggest break?
That would be my first portfolio, Parmillion Prints of the High Sierras, in 1927. It was a success and gave me the confidence and the funds to realize that I could actually pursue photography as a profession rather than just a hobby.
What were your biggest struggles before success?
Financial stability was a constant shadow. I had to choose between the piano and the camera, and for a long time I tried to do both. I also did a lot of commercial work, shooting catalogs and advertisements just to pay the bills. It wasn't always art, but it kept the lights on.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Not quitting art, but I certainly had moments of deep doubt about whether I could survive on it. There were times when the heavy equipment and the long treks felt like a lot for a man who also wanted to be a delicate pianist.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
Physical fitness. I walked and hiked constantly. You can't capture the mountains if you can't climb them. Later in life, I was very disciplined in the darkroom. I'd spend hours, sometimes days, on a single print to get the performance of the light just right.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I would have been a piano teacher in a quiet house in San Francisco, likely spending my weekends hiking and taking hobby photos that no one would ever see.
What was your life like before fame?
It was a bit solitary, but very focused. I spent my summers as a custodian for the Sierra Club's LeConte Memorial Lodge in Yosemite. I was basically a mountain man with a camera and a very large appetite for adventure.
How did relationships change after success?
I met my wonderful wife, Virginia, in Yosemite. She was the daughter of a landscape painter. As I became more well known, our life became a whirlwind of gallery openings and conservation meetings, but we always kept our home in Carmel as a sanctuary.
Did fame bring happiness?
It brought the freedom to protect the places I loved. That was the real happiness, knowing my work could help convince a president to protect a canyon or a forest.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
The sheer volume of correspondence. I wanted to be in the darkroom or the woods, but I found myself answering letters and attending meetings. Also, people began to expect a certain Ansel Adams look, which can be a bit of a cage for an artist.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
Some critics thought my work lacked humanity because I didn't often include people in my landscapes. But to me, the Earth is the greatest human story of all.
What was your darkest moment?
During the Great Depression, the struggle to support a family while staying true to an artistic vision was incredibly taxing. There were moments of genuine fear about the future of the country and our wilderness.
What past regrets did you carry that you spoke about?
I sometimes worried I hadn't done enough for the cause of conservation. Even with all the photos, the world is a fragile place, and the battle to save it is never truly over.
What's something people misunderstood about your life?
People often thought I just snapped a lucky photo. They didn't see the hours of waiting for the sun, the freezing nights, or the complex math of the zone system I developed to control the exposure. It was as much science as it was art.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong and how did you handle it?
Oh, I remember trying to capture Moonrise, Hernandez, New Mexico. The light was fading fast, I couldn't find my light meter, and I had to calculate the exposure based on the luminance of the moon from memory. I barely got the shot before the sun set. If I had been 10 seconds later, that iconic photo wouldn't exist. I handled it with a lot of frantic scurrying and a bit of prayer.
Did fame and fortune change your life?
It allowed me to move to the Carmel Highlands and build a home with a spectacular view of the Pacific. But at my core, I remain the same man who is just happy with a mule, a camera, and a sandwich in the high country.
What personal battles were you fighting privately?
Just the internal struggle of the artist, the divine dissatisfaction. No matter how good a print was, I always felt I could hear the music of the landscape a little bit clearer if I just tried one more time.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
My father, for his unwavering support of my oddities, and Albert Bender, who was the patron who pushed me to publish my first portfolio. And of course, the mountains themselves.
What was life like in your final years?
I stayed very busy. I was working on my autobiography and a new book on printing techniques. I was even using a word processor, quite the leap from a manual typewriter. I tried to keep my mind as sharp as my lens.
What were you working on in your career before you passed away?
I was mainly focused on reinterpreting my earlier negatives. I felt that with age and experience, I could find new depths in the photos I took decades prior.
When and where and how did you pass away? And how old were you?
I passed away on April 22nd, 1984 in Monterey, California. I was 82 years old, and it was my heart, cardiovascular disease, that finally decided it had climbed enough mountains.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I was quite the jokester. I loved a good laugh. Also, I was a very dedicated cocktail maker. I took the chemistry of a good martini as seriously as the chemistry of my developer fluid.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you?
That I had a secret trick camera. There was no trickery, just a lot of heavy lifting and a deep understanding of light.
What was your most unique habit?
I would often talk to the scenery. I'd thank the mountains or mutter a bit at the clouds when they weren't cooperating. It was a very vocal partnership.
What was your favorite restaurant?
I always had a soft spot for the Nepenthe in Big Sur. The views are almost as good as the food.
What was your favorite book?
I was deeply moved by the writings of Edward Carpenter and, of course, the works of John Muir. Their words were the libretto to my visual music.
Did you have any known rivalries?
Not so much rivalries, but spirited debates. Some of the documentary photographers felt my work was too pretty and didn't show the grit of human suffering. I just felt that showing the beauty of the world was its own kind of essential truth.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
Once, while I was out in the wilderness, I had to use a mule to carry my heavy 8x10 camera. The mule decided it didn't like the look of a particular cliff and nearly tipped over, camera and all. I spent 20 minutes bargaining with a mule to save my career.
What's your funniest behind-the-scenes moment?
Probably the times I'd be scurrying around in the dark room in the middle of the night, covered in chemicals, looking like a mad scientist, only to realize I'd been wearing my hat the whole time.
Did you ever prank someone?
I was more of a wit than a prankster, but I did enjoy a bit of playful banter with my fellow photographers in Group F64. We'd send each other critiques that were really just sophisticated ways of poking fun.
What was the most outlandish purchase you made?
I suppose some would say my Cadillacs. I loved a good, sturdy car that could handle the long drives to the desert or the mountains. I even had a platform built on top of one so I could use it as a giant tripod.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Don't chase success. Chase the light. Find the thing that makes your soul vibrate and commit to it with everything you have. And for heaven's sake, keep yourself in shape so you can enjoy it for a lifetime.
Ansel, this has been an absolute joy. Before we sign off, do you have any closing remarks about this interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners?
Just that I hope my stories remind everyone to look a little closer at the world around them. There is a magnificent performance happening in nature every single day, and you don't need a fancy camera to see it. You just need to open your eyes. Thank you so much for having me, Calvin. It's been a grand adventure.
What an incredible journey through the lens of a master. We talked about everything from a broken nose in the San Francisco earthquake to bargaining with mules in the High Sierra. Ansel, thank you again for coming on the show. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.